Session now. It is Tuesday, March 10th. We're meeting as the governing body of all taxing and special assessment districts. Those items that have a specific time will be heard at that time. All other items may be taken out of sequence for staff and public availability. To begin, I would like us all to please join in a moment of reflection and special attentions as you see fit. I would now ask the County Administrative Officer, Jay Serena, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you. Any introduction of new employees? No? Okay, then how about closed session? Council, was any action in closed session? How about Jay?
Not to speak with her, but at this point, I'll wait until she comes back.
Okay. So at this time, I'd request any deletions, corrections, or additions to any items on the agenda. In order to have an item placed on the agenda, it had to arisen subsequent to posting the agenda and requires action prior to our next meeting. Are there any such items? Okay. Then I think it would probably be time to receive brief reports from the supervisors and start with Supervisor Howard.
Thank you, Chair Finnegan. busy last couple weeks. Quite a few committees met in the last couple weeks, but in particular I want to highlight a few very briefly. A&C, glad to see that still going, and attended that meeting with Supervisor Hemmingson. Very interesting things going on at this time, and hopefully A&C will be rebirthed soon, as I believe it's one of the most effective tools we have here in this community for moving economic development projects forward. Also attended at the board's request new supervisor training put on by CSAC in Sacramento. It was a 2-day course, mostly heard from county CAOs and planning departments. It was extremely educational, and more importantly had an opportunity to meet with some of our legislative representatives. In the afternoon I had free waiting for an airplane over at the state capitol and talk about important Del Norte County issues to all of us. I've been continuing to work and will continue to support literacy programs in this community. I know it's a very big objective of the Board of Supervisors and also other constituents in this community. I would love to continue to see us move forward with those programs here, especially in our goals committees as we're discussing right now, but in particular support the Del Norte County Board of Education and their various departments, including the Department of Ed and the school district, in focusing in on our youth and, more importantly, those literacy aspects that they're dealing with right now. Participated along with Supervisor McClure and Supervisor Hemmingson, search for a new superintendent. Very happy to see that the Del Norte School Board has gone and done community outreach specifically for that search for a superintendent. It's just not a decision that should be taken lightly because it affects everybody in this community, and especially those that are most important to us, our youth. In addition, met with Redwood National Park on their 2x2 committee. I wanted to highlight a few things over there. Hopefully I'm not taking any wind out of Supervisor Hemmingson's sails, but they're moving very aggressively forward on plans for restructuring the Jedediah Smith campground and increasing visitor servicing areas in that neighborhood, and more importantly, the number of campsites that service visitors to our area. I think it's very important to drawing in new customers, and I do support that plan as it moves forward, and hopefully they'll aggressively continue to pursue it. Also spoke to them about some new studies that they're doing through Harvard University, specific to economic studies and the impact of Redwood National State Parks here on our community. I'm very eager to see the results of those studies. Some of their initial projections basically supported about a $780 million a year annual income to our community as a whole from the attraction of having a Redwood National and State Park here at our location. So I'm hoping to see some of that economic data and really truly how it affects our community. In addition, they've moved forward with the acquisition of Simpson Timber Company's old Oric sawmill site. Many of you might be aware of that. It's still held in trust for parks through Save the Redwoods League, but it sounds like their future plans for that facility have to do with a history and interpretation of logging for our community. I think that will be very well received. Logging was very important to our community at one time. We had 52 mills just in Del Norte County. Obviously that doesn't exist anymore. It was a huge driver of some of our early economic successes. So hopefully we could find a replacement for that someday, but remembering that history I think is very important to us. Also served as an alternate for Supervisor Hemmingson on the Border Coast Regional Airport Authority. The most important thing that came out of that meeting, as I'm sure Supervisor Finnegan will discuss, was the selection of a new provider of essential air services to our community, and I won't spend any more time on that. Had an excellent tour of Juvenile Hall led around by Lonnie and Katrina. I want to thank them personally for opening their doors to me and showing me really what they go through on a day-to-day basis. I was encouraged, having visited there 10 years ago, to see that the number of juveniles coming through their facility has decreased dramatically. Hopefully that has to do with intervention programs and working not as a silo, but more of an outreach and partnership with other services that the community and the county provide. But it was nice to see a low number of youth in that facility. I think they're doing a wonderful job in there, but I also think there's room for improvement and focus on education. But I do want to thank them for their time and that tour. The one note I wanted to end on related to the upcoming Smith River Neighborhood Watch meeting on Wednesday. Would encourage folks within my district to attend that meeting. They're very active. I know Sheriff Apperson has been very diligent in having himself or representatives from the Sheriff's Department out there at that meeting. I really appreciate seeing that. And more importantly, I wanted to thank the great effort by not only the Sheriff's Department but other agencies that responded to the incident in that district last night on Highway 101. It was great to see law enforcement converge and take advantage of that. And I really wish the young man that ran himself into the woods had a pleasant evening last night, and he comes to his senses soon. That's all I have to report at this time.
Thank you. Supervisor Hemmingson.
Yes, thank you. As Supervisor Howard said, we did have a tri-agency meeting, and I'm not going to go into it much more than what he said, but hopefully we can move beyond our past financial issues and move that group forward as he feels. I feel the same way, that it should be the premier agency of the county, really. The harbor, the city, and the county are the players in the county, and we should be moving forward to help economic growth and development here. I went to Chico State for a socioeconomic roundtable having to do with the Forest Service. The group that I am a member of, SFAC, the Sustainable Forest Action Coalition, put this on with the help of the Forest Service, who was in attendance there. But it's to gather data on what impacts the Forest Service has in managing or not managing forests, which in the case of Del Norte County, we are the poster child. We know what happens when we're no longer able to manage our forests or take timber off of the public lands. We lose all of our infrastructure, mills, all those timber jobs, and there's nothing left there. So anyway, they're going to be gathering data, putting that all together, and they'll come out with a report. And they got some really talented people over there having to do with statistics and data, and it's going to be real interesting to see what they come up with. I met with Kent Crayford from Redwood Airlines. They were the competing effort against Pin Air for our essential air service. But not too much to report, other than I met with him and he gave me his spiel. Had a local transportation commission finance committee meeting. We were mostly discussing the Redwood Coast Transit audit. Got some recommendations there that will come out probably in our next meeting. I did go to, as Supervisor Howard mentioned earlier, the outreach that the schools did for the new superintendent of schools. Now, we've never had outreach, as far as I'm aware of, like that from the school district or I guess the group that's searching for a replacement for the superintendent of schools. Have an outreach like that where they want community input and participation from the Board of Supervisors and the city. We, while we were there, Blake Inscore and Rick Hawley were both there at the meeting, along with Supervisor Howard and Supervisor McClure. So we were able to give them some input. Each one of us probably had a little different look at things, so it was pretty interesting. I did go to the Pin Air meet and greet at the Ocean View Inn, met those people. I missed the meeting that Supervisor Howard filled in for me because I was at another very important weed meeting or cannabis meeting, so which I'll get into here a little bit later. It's a little bit later in my report. And as Supervisor Howard said, we seem to be meeting the last week or two at the same, having the same series of meetings. So we met with Redwood National and State Parks. They've got a hiring program. They're going to be hiring. Supervisor Howard went over most everything that they talked about, but I don't think he touched on the youth employment and the youth engagement. They're going to have 75 to 80 hires. I assume that means within Humboldt and Delmar County. I don't think it's just Delmar County. But here's an opportunity, if you're looking to get into that type of work, here's an opportunity for you to get in on the ground floor. Through the summer, they'll be hiring. And the applications need to be in by January, I think, is what they like to see. So for this season, you're going to be pretty well left out. But you might want to keep that in mind for next year. And we'll try to remind you. I told them to put that on their calendar to let us know so we could put that information out, that there will be some information coming on hires. So the meeting that I was talking about, which was a cannabis summit, which was a regional summit where the rural counties, northern rural counties in California, we are expecting a bill to be introduced or initiative to where they are going to legalize recreational use of cannabis. So when that becomes legal, or if it becomes legal, we need to hit the ground running. We need to make sure that we are not impacted with fees or enforcement that we may have to give in order to keep this. It may be a mandate that funding, may not come from the state. We may have to come up with that. So we just want to make sure that that we've got all our ducks in a row, and we can make sure that if it comes about, we're ready for it. It was a very preliminary meeting. It was a first meeting. CAO Serena and I went down to that, and it was pretty interesting. There was a lot of good information that came out from RCRC, a lot of good information that came out from CSAC. There was a real good presentation by the council from Gunnison County, David Baumgartner. Of course, this is Colorado, Gunnison County, Colorado, which they've already legalized cannabis there. So it was pretty interesting. His insight was needed for the meeting, and there were a lot of good points that he brought out. I went to Don Clausen's memorial services in Fortuna. You know, he was quite a guy. Of course, he was a supervisor here for, I think, 2 terms, was a congressman for our district for 20 years, and then went on to do special projects for the FAA, was the head of special projects for the FAA. And it was, the memorial services were held at the River Lodge in Fortuna, a real nice facility, well attended, had a flyover by the U.S. Coast Guard in the missing man formation, full color guard. I mean, it was really, really a nice affair. Proclamations were read by representatives from Jared Huffman's office and Mike McGuire and Jim Wood, Assemblyman Wood and Senator Mike McGuire and Estelle Fennell from Humboldt County. They all had proclamations for him, which was real nice. It was a real nice service. And also, of course, you've heard probably the passing of Tommy Sparrow. Went to his open house. You know, we've had just a series of deaths that have certainly impacted me personally. Tommy Sparrow was a good friend. I call him a friend. We had quite a few meetings together. Joe Duncan passed away here not too long ago, and of course Don Clausen went to his services, and my daughter-in-law's brother, who was beaten into a coma some years ago, 6 years ago, here in Crescent City, and finally passed away, Robert Gregory. And so pretty saddened over all those things, and with that, I will end my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Gitlin.
Thank you. Well, after our February 24th meeting, I met with a former constituent. She asked me to identify her today in my remarks. Her name is Leah Idem. She expressed to me her displeasure with our Board of Supervisors for its lack of engagement on the Sutter Coast Hospital's application to lower status from acute care to critical access, and the loss of almost 1/2 of the available beds, and an increase of about $5 million into added revenue to the coffers of Sutter Health District. I actually agreed with her, and she was absolutely right. So that conversation will very well be continued tonight at the fairgrounds when Mrs. Idem and several others bring that issue up, which I intend to address, and I hope to see some of you tonight at the fairgrounds at 6 o'clock for that discussion. I think Supervisor Hemmingson will also be joining me at that meeting. Billboards are in the news. The Advocacy Committee of the Chamber of Commerce met to discuss 2 problematic billboards. The first one at mile marker 2400, that's just south of Crescent City, displayed an ad using the word sexing and the display of, I have to use the old words, marijuana plants. Can't seem to get my arm around using cannabis as a word. I received several complaint calls identifying this billboard as very offensive. The Advocacy Committee asked me to find out more information from Caltrans Outdoor Advertising on the permitting process of this particular billboard, which lies in the Caltrans right-of-way. The second billboard is a private one. It doesn't have anything to do with Caltrans. It's at mile marker 4450 in Smith River, and it's severely covered with graffiti on both sides. It's clearly offensive to the almost 1 million vehicles a year that pass annually by this. And owners of the property have been so advised, and the graffiti will be removed forthwith. Our community should not tolerate this wanton vandalism, and those who are arrested, and I hope that will be something forthcoming, they should be subjected to the strictest force of the law. I attended our first Sea Cruise Car Show meeting this year. Nothing to report at this time. Thursday, that would be February 26th, I attended the monthly meeting of the Del Norte Library Trustees. Chairman Raintree began to unveil the 5-year plan. The trustees have declared a desire to involve more of the public And at the Friday Chamber of Commerce meeting, which was the next day, the trustees were there to introduce themselves to Chamber Executive Board members and announce it will soon host a Chamber mixer. Friday last, Angela and I attended the monthly VFW post-1381 dinner. It's always a pleasure to meet with the vets and their families. Last Tuesday, that would be March 3rd, the Last Chance Advisory Committee met in Ukiah at the Mendocino Board of Supervisors meeting, as that board voted unanimously to send a letter of support and recommendation to the Del Norte Local Transportation Commission and a copy to Caltrans District 1 to locate, select, and build an alternate route around the flawed Last Chance grade, which, as you know, 10 miles south of Crescent City. And while there, I thank the Mendocino Board for its proactive stand on this issue and affirming the precarious road is not just a local issue, it's very much a regional, if not statewide issue. So I thank you, Kurt Stremberg, and thank you, former Supervisor Chuck Blackburn, for your assisting in adding the support of Mendocino County to the other over 30-plus letters from similar governances throughout Humboldt and Del Norte counties. Last Wednesday, Sheriff Apperson personally took me on an inspection of the jail. I must say this old facility has seen its better day. Del Norte County needs a new jail. I was particularly concerned inmates and staff while inside the building never see the sun or breathe fresh air. While inside the building, I found that this dynamic is a bit troubling, especially for long-term inmates who are serving their sentences from CDCR, and now they are housed in a county facility. Further observations, corrections need additional staffing. I observed at least 2 more corrections staff are necessary. Food was hot and served in a timely manner for the over 100-plus inmates currently detained. Thursday afternoon, I met with State Parks Director Jeff Bomke and National Parks Director Steve Prokop to discuss blight issues within the park. I discussed a planned Take a Bite Out of Blight Crescent City Lions Club community volunteer cleanup effort on fish and wildlife property off the beach at 101 near Sand Mine Road, and that will take place March 28th between 8 and 1 a.m. That's a Saturday. We are seeking volunteers, so please contact me if you would like to volunteer in cleaning up part of this magnificent beach area. There's 3 areas. They're not real large, but they're troublesome, and one thing is for sure, if we don't do anything to clean it up, it will get worse. Later that afternoon, I met the new Crescent City Chief of Police, Ivan Minsall. The Chief and I share a similar vision of wishing to clean up our community. I feel very confident that Chief Minsall will be a very proactive person in addressing criminal activity with his very dedicated staff. Friday, I helped County Employee and Maintenance Director Ed Fulton celebrate 30 years of service to Del Norte County. This past weekend, I assisted the Crescent City Lions Club in raising funds for its annual rummage sale. That was me standing in front of the driveway waving at you, if you didn't know that. It was a great success. Lots of funds were raised to help purchase eyeglasses, hearing aids, and to provide additional labor to take a bite out of blight. Sunday was a somber one for me, as Supervisor Hemmingson mentioned to you. We lost a great member of our community with the passing of Recology General Manager Tommy Sparrow. He was a great friend and stalwart in Del Norte County. Condolences to Tommy's wife Donna and family. He will be greatly missed. And we hope to see you at tonight's meeting sponsored by the Tea Party Patriots. Both Supervisor Hemmingson and I will be there to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Hemmingson?
If I could, the county has applied for a planning grant for Del Norte County OHV facilities, OHV facilities plan, and also a ground operations grant to install signage on certain roads that we've deemed that would be usable for combined use, which means OHV use as well as standard vehicle traffic in the forest. But here's an opportunity for the public to get involved and support these plans for OHV to have an actual area where they can recreate. So you can go to the website and view the grants, the county website, go to CDD, and under roads, I think you'll find the 2 grants. Or you can get a hold of Randy Hooper, who has put this stuff together, has been really instrumental in bringing all this stuff to to fruition to where we can actually have areas where we can use some OHVs. I just wanted to bring that up.
Good, thank you. So a couple of things. I wasn't at the last meeting. I'll try to be brief with most of my reporting out, but something that fell through the cracks here, obviously, is we did not, at our last meeting, have a resolution for Congressman Don Clausen. And so would it be appropriate to add that to this agenda, saying that it's an emergency item that arose subsequent to posting the agenda that requires action prior to our next meeting, so it could be timely, or does it just need to be put on our next agenda?
I would suggest it just be put on our next
Okay.
agenda to have
Then I'm going to direct staff to please prepare that and have it on our next agenda, and we can present that to the family. I went to a First Five Summit, participated in Sacramento. That had to do with health and welfare of children. It was co-sponsored by social services groups as well as First Five. There, we dealt with literacy. We dealt with all kinds of health, foster care, all the age groups. But Supervisor Howard, since you brought up literacy, I know we've talked in the past, and when I was at CSAC, the Attorney General Kamala Harris, when I was doing Year of the Child, she was doing reading proficiency in 3rd grade. And as an indicator of whether a child was going to graduate from high school or whether they were going to end up in the juvenile justice system, and it was a great indicator. Well, what they now know is that a child's vocabulary at 18 months is an indicator of whether that child or how they will be able to read in 3rd grade. So we're going way, way upstream. So something we're going to be working on with that. And there's going to be a movie coming to this community that I don't know whether I'll do it after a Board of Supervisors meeting. I know that we'll have a public viewing of it. It's called Raising of America. And it's really an embarrassment for America to talk about our children when they are born, and we're the only intelligent country in the world of the top 30 that does not allow for paid maternal leave. That parents that have 2 parents in the household that have to work, the child goes to the babysitter immediately, and how precious those first years are. Anyway, it is an amazing documentary. I think that we will heighten the level of interest and information of what's going on with our children and how we're beginning their lives, and you can actually take a good look of what the product is going to be in the end by what we're doing in the beginning. Had a meeting with the Yurok tribe, Yurok 2x2. I thank the sheriff for participating. I think we're getting very close to an agreement there. Had the Safe and Healthy Family Goal Committee where we talked about a children's budget that will be coming forward. Did a couple of agenda reviews, participated in a State Association of Counties board meeting, went back to Washington, D.C. representing the Western Interstate region for the state of California at the National Association of Counties. The theme there was threefold, really, was transportation, and that's because Ricky Okama, who is the chair or the president of NACO out of Hawaii, came from the transportation subcommittees, much like myself at NACO. And so that theme is throughout everything that he's doing this year. We had meetings with the leadership in both the House and the Senate talking about transportation and the importance of the funding. And of course, at a state level, we're working on that as well. Also had meetings with the National Forest County Schools Coalition, which has to do with our funding, not just the PILT, but the Secure Rural Schools. It looks like, even though there was a promise to have some funding within the first 90 days of this Republican House, they're going to be in a time crunch because we only got a couple of weeks to hit that 90 days. It's about, I think we talked $1.3 million to this county alone. It looks like there will be a temporary 1-year fix, and then there's some legislation working on a 3-year, a longer fix. There needs to be some set-asides. They need to identify where the funds are coming from, and they're going to try it to timber forest management within the forest. The also at that committee there was Vice President Biden addressed us, as well as the Secretary of Labor, as well as the Secretary of Education. And one of the main themes, aside from transportation, is community colleges. That the workforce, what we're seeing is the workforce is coming back to the United States of America. It's not the manufacturing workforce that we exported to China or India. It's actually going to be the technology groups that are coming back. And the niche for whether it's computer programmers or whatever that is really need to be groomed, if you will, in community colleges. So there's an effort at the federal level to try and fully fund community colleges. I think this, as a community, we need to be engaged in that discussion because it's something we've talked about for some time here locally. Along with that, after that I went to Sacramento for a California Transportation Commission road usage charge committee. The next meeting we have, we're going to get into the technology options. There are some states that have already done this. It's something that we are going to have to do to be able to pay for our roads. I also participated in a CSAC revenue and capital improvement program. Had another agenda review. I did meet with the Redwood Seaplanes or Redwood Airline gentlemen. I was going to meet with Peninsula Air, but my 7 to 9 meeting, I showed up 12 hours late. I thought it was going to be an evening meeting. So, anyway, it did. We met up with each other at the JPA, the airport JPA, where we did select Pen Air as our first choice to be the new carrier here for the Essential Air Service. There are some misguided people that took opportunity with the media to say that it was a great idea to go to Oakland. Well, it's a great idea, but that's just it, not with that airlines. That, if had we not selected Pen Air, it would have been a step back into the dark ages of aviation. There would have been no need for runway safety area, no need for any of the mitigation, no need for a terminal, no need to spend the millions of dollars that are already being earmarked. And we would have had a non-sterile, no TSA, loss of jobs, loss of revenues, and thank God Pen Air stepped up to the plate. And it is going to be, with scheduling, should be even better than we had before. Yes, we wanted to go to San Francisco, but there was no options there. So thank you for everybody who supported Pen Air as a community. Participated in another National Forest County Schools Coalition, getting an update of where the bills are. Then had calls from constituents. I'm glad to hear that the Chamber of Commerce is taking the lead on the billboard south of town, the sexting marijuana issue there. It's a terrible way to present the entrance to our community, so I'm glad to see that the Chamber is taking the lead on that. And then since the road department's here, I'll forget by the end of the meeting, constituents in Klamath, now that the Steelhead Lodge is open again, I guess, at the turn there of Redwood Road, or you go straight and Star when there's a yield sign, and I don't know whether it probably is state rather than our county road, but maybe we can have some communication there regarding the yield sign and making it so it's visible. Other than that, there will be, I've been asked to sit on a strategic planning, one of the partnership groups that Congressman Huffman is going to be leading regarding the bypass on Highway 101. There is going to be a meeting here in Klamath, perhaps the end of this month. We're still finalizing the agenda and the partners, and Jay, I'll be talking to you regarding possible participation in some of the funding for that meeting. And with that, I think we'll hear from the CAO.
Over the last couple of weeks, I've also been involved in evaluation preparation for the department heads, talking to a few citizens regarding some of their issues, helping them, getting in correct direction, meetings with various departments, attended the tri-agency meeting. I had a few phone calls regarding tri-agency's involvement in assisting them as best we can with some of the research and pulling out some of the history in regards to 400 Front Street. Meeting with the Harbor Master CAO regarding some of the plans that he's going to be bringing forward. A couple of meetings with the Yurok tribe over the intergovernmental agreements regarding gaming, and a few other discussions. Also met with First Five staff regarding the children's budget, and as mentioned by Supervisor Hemmingson, went to the Regional Summit on marijuana. There is an anticipation that there could be competing initiatives coming forward And one of our goals is to try to get out in front of that so that we can be prepared for anything that is forced upon us, and at least have our Del Norte County's interests at the table before that happens. We're not quite sure what the impact will be at that point. Obviously, it's an issue that has to be dealt with by the voters. There are already issues with medical marijuana, and we know what some of the issues are in Colorado, and the gentleman from Gunnison was very informative and has made himself available to us at any time, basically, to call and discuss with him some of the issues with implementation of the ordinances or the law in Colorado and how that may reflect on California. Mendocino and Sonoma counties took the lead on this summit and had a lot of our representatives there, so that they did get give a lot of information out to us, as well as we now know what their involvement is as far as their staff. So it was very informative. We will continue to stay on top of this so that we can try to assure that any financial impact on the county or other impacts to our services that we provide, primarily public safety, are taken into account.
Thank you. County Council, was there any action taken out of closed session?
Yes, there was, and sorry for my tardiness. I was having a tickle in my throat and I was coughing like crazy. There was unanimous vote with Supervisor McClure being absent to defend the Reichland versus Del Norte County Department of Health and Human Services case.
Thank you. Along the lines of that marijuana summit that you have, it is coming. When I was leaving Washington, D.C., it was the day that the next day they had voted to legalize in the District of Columbia marijuana. Congress was fighting with the city and the mayor because Congress said they are the ones that have the enforcement authority in the District of Columbia, but the people voted on it and they threatened to throw the mayor in jail, whatnot. Make a long story short, pot is now legalized in D.C., and there's a movement I heard in the news this morning for the feds to take away their opposition. So it's coming. It's how we prepare for it. And I think right now is what I would like to do is have public comment. Any member of the public may address this board on any items under the purview of the board. If it's going to be brought up later in the agenda, you might want to wait. You don't have to. Member of the public, please.
Good morning, board. I'm Curtis Bauer. I was a former hospital administrator in the Bay Area and down in Central California, as well as a medical group administrator. I also spent the last 10 years of my career as director of Colusa County Department of Behavioral Health, Mental Health, and Substance Abuse. I wanted to talk to the board just briefly about the hospital. I've been attending the healthcare district board meetings. I find them really interesting and frustrating. They asked me to prepare a report. I did a study of Mad River, St. Joseph's, and Sutter Coast. And one of the reasons Sutter Coast wanted to go to critical access is that they had the worst payer mix and they weren't getting enough money. Well, Mad River brought in about $52 million, and they turned $1.2 million to 2.1 profit in 2013. Sutter Coast brought in $62 million, but spent $67 million. I have a breakdown that I would like to give to the board. Do I give it to
the clerk?
Okay.
Yes,
Clerk.
thank you.
The healthcare district also asked a group of us that attend to meet with Mitch Hanna. We did, and he gave us about an hour and 20 minutes. It was very cordial, made me think things were moving in the right direction. He said to give him a letter of all the questions he couldn't answer, and we gave it to him, and then we gave it to him again, and we gave it to him a third time, and we didn't get any responses. We wanted to know, did they really spend $6 million on an air handler? It seems like a lot of money when a local person said it was around 1.2 million could be done. and how much of that money went to Sutter Health for a chargeback. And we want to know how much money went to Sutter Health overall to contribute to that $5 million loss when 2009 and 10, the hospital showed profit. Anyway, critical access is not a good idea for our community. I called CalPERS and Blue Cross. They said in Lakeport, where they have a Sutter Coast critical access hospital, the Medicare premiums, the supplemental insurance went up, and Medicare only covers, instead of 80%, 50% of the fees. So it's an impact directly on this community. And you'll see more liens on people who can't pay, and you'll see many Medicare recipients impacted negatively.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other public comment?
I'm Joseph Faliotti. I live in Crescent City. Good morning, Supervisors. Thank you for serving and allowing me to speak today. I'm disturbed about a new bill that's introduced. I'm not sure if it's in Congress or the state, about censorship laws. The First Amendment is so important. It's the first one. In 1791, the First Amendment was established. 1931, the Supreme Court held that virtually all forms of restraint on free speech were unconstitutional. Over time, the freedom of press has been tested repeatedly in the legal system. Every decision points to the significance and importance of the freedom of press. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the press. I'm very concerned about a new bill that I believe has the potential to destroy one of our most important constitutional rights. Any information action that restricts, changes, or limits sunshine laws or freedom of information laws is not part of the spirit of America and what we stand for or even fought for and died for. Our ability to get information of any type on any event in our country or the rest of the world is vital for decision making in business and our personal lives, including travel. The recent introduction of internet censorship laws in the United States is disturbing to me and many other citizens also. As our local elected officials, I ask you to take this issue to state and federal officials and ask them not to pass any new censorship laws. This concern is so important to our community. As the oath of office states, in part, to support and defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. I believe this falls under that category. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, we do have a timed item. Before we do, Supervisor Hemmings, I know that you're on the 2x2 with the healthcare district. I think you've been involved with this Sutter Coast for a while. I had a long conversation with Nick Mangione, who is Health and Human Services in San Diego County, talking about how bad this critical access issue would be for Del Norte County. He was a wealth of knowledge. He also had some insight as to leverage and some questions that need to be asked in light of Obamacare and the reimbursement rates and how much money that hospital really is making. This board has been on record, as Dr. Caldwell and Duncan know, that we've asked to open for the hospital district, not the hospital district, but for Sutter Coast, to open their books and to open the minutes to their meetings. So we're consistent with that, but you might, between you and Jay, call Nick and get some ammo. He talked about that perhaps Kamala Harris, the Attorney General, is not being used enough, in which case we should be using her more. Okay, with that, we are going to go to a 10:30 timed item. Sorry we're running just a little bit late. There's a presentation on the updates of the operations by Partnership Health Plan of California. Welcome.
I wanted to introduce Margaret Klusiak and Andy Jensen from Partnership Help for your update.
Thank you very much, Supervisors. And what Andy is passing out and what I have copies of the public for as well are copies of our annual report and then of the brief presentation that we're going to be giving you. So thank you so much for the opportunity for us to speak to you about our partnership regarding health care to members of, or to the citizens of Del Norte County. I'm Margaret Kislyak. I'm the Regional Director for Partnership Health Plan. I'm based in Reading, and Andy Jensen is the Regional Manager for our office based in Eureka. So Partnership Health Plan has been in existence for 20 years. In each county that we work in, we currently are in 14 counties. We've been invited in by the county. We serve the Medi-Cal members in that county, and we work in close partnership with our providers and with the counties. Our mission is to help our members in the communities we serve be healthy, and we believe that we're doing a good job on that with the limited resources that are available in the Medi-Cal program. We are a nonprofit public plan. We work with a board with local control and autonomy. You appoint one member to our board, and that's Director Pearson. And we work closely with the community. We have advisory boards made up of providers and advisory boards made up of public members, and we are always soliciting additional members, including soliciting for additional members in Del Norte County. Among the added value that we provide to your community is that we provide we pay higher than the regular Medi-Cal rate for providers. When the state has made cuts in provider reimbursement, for the most part, we've been able to not pass those through to our providers. For instance, the most recent cut in 10% fee-for-service Medi-Cal rates, we did not pass on to our providers. And we work very hard on providing good customer service to our providers as well as our members. Among the benefits to our members are the customer services lines. We have care coordinators who work closely with them on case management, and we've been able to provide some benefits that are not covered in regular Medi-Cal. So in your county and the other counties we serve, there are some benefits. Your Medi-Cal recipients get more than some folks get elsewhere in the state, including vision and some podiatry benefits that we recently added. We save the state about 10% over what it was paying before in fee-for-service Medi-Cal, and our administrative costs are less than 4%. So the bulk of our provider dollar goes to, the bulk of our Medi-Cal dollar goes to your providers and to your community.
Excuse me, is there a PowerPoint that goes with this?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was passed out to you.
Well, we do have it, but I noticed that the front cover there, and I thought maybe...
Good point.
That's fine, I just thought I'd throw it.
Okay, so I'll move over here
It's up to you.
Since we provided it, we might as well. Okay, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Thank you. So even so, it's a little bit hard to read the chart, but thank you for pointing that out, Supervisor. So our members are the low-income folks in the rural counties. About 43% of them are children. We have people with disabilities in our plan, folks with mental illness, and about 8.7% of our members are elderly and over 87. Are over 65. We began services in Del Norte County September 1, 2013. When we started, we had about 7,000 members. We currently have, actually hot off the press, as of Monday, we had 10,541 members in Del Norte County. We have 34 providers contracted with us in your county, which includes 11 mid-level folks, 8 primary care providers, and 15 specialists, as well as the hospital. This chart provides some demographics on the age statistics that I gave you. As you might expect, the bulk of our members are between 25 and 64. Most of our members in your county are Caucasian, but they're about 10%, and this doesn't show up so much on the way the state does its accounting, but about 10% are American Indian or other related ethnicities. So among the ways that we support your local community, I'm just going to list a few. Is we recently had a innovation grant process where we solicited proposals from communities, and we are awarding some money to Open Door Community Clinics, which include their clinic in Del Norte County to increase their psychiatric services, and we're considering some additional proposals that would assist with transportation services. We're working with the director on an intergovernmental transfer program that could provide some additional Medi-Cal dollars to your county to be spent on health and welfare programs that you define. And now I'm going to ask Andy to speak about some of our other initiatives.
Thank you for allowing us to speak today. I don't know if you guys are aware, but opioid deaths actually replaced motor vehicle deaths for the largest preventable deaths in our country. The prescription of opioid medicine has been a real problem facing our society. And to really help manage this, we launched what we call our Managing Pain Safely program. There's a little bit of a graphic here. For every one death due to opioid overdose, there's 825 non-medical users of these drugs. So we have a really robust effort in this area. Let's see if I get this right. Great. Okay, so in this Managing Pain Safely program, we've done significant amount of provider education, both in person, and we've hosted various conferences, including the Managing Pain Safely Forum in Santa Rosa. We've also tried to educate communities on the problems with prescription opioid usage. We're also in the process of building a toolkit for communities to help address these problems. So although we had the conference down in Santa Rosa, it can be very difficult for a provider from Del Norte County to get down there for a one-day or a two-day conference. So we invested in some high-quality videography, and we're splicing that together. We're going to create a community website, a toolkit, so to speak, for communities to access to try to address some of these issues. We are also facilitating community work groups in this area. A lot of the counties that we're serving are starting to launch efforts to try to get a standard approach for all the clinics and the hospitals to be on the same page, which sends a powerful message to patients. We're also very tightly managing our formulary, and we're actually adding other benefits to our offering to help other ways of addressing pain, including acupuncture, physical therapy, and massage. One of the things I really love about partnership is what a big emphasis we put on quality health care. So we have a very robust quality improvement program where we take key measures, and then it's really an exercise in motivational economics. We reward providers for reaching certain benchmarks and how they're handling their patient base. And it's a really well thought out, well designed program. And so there are a lot of folks within the company. It's a very robust effort. Last year, we distributed over $370,000 to providers in Del Norte County based on how they did on this quality incentive program. This is in addition to the other reimbursements we would normally give. So this is money that comes afterwards on top of their budget that can really be used for creative things by the clinics that we're working with. We also recognize the difficulty of bringing providers and both physicians and mid-levels to these rural places, and partnership took the unusual step of launching a provider assistance recruitment effort. So we've been assisting some of the clinics, our partner clinics, in their recruitment, and one of the early successes was a pediatrician that recently signed to serve here in Del Norte County based on our assistance with the Open Doors. So that's already bearing fruit. Thank you.
So just to summarize, we are really delighted to be part of your community and to have been invited into your community. We believe and we provide additional benefit to the community, not just in terms of dollars, but in terms of working with you on community projects and in any way that makes sense for the health of your community. So Andy's in Eureka, and we're always hiring folks and trying to add to that office, and he's in Del Norte on call. And we are just want to thank you so much for the time and answer any questions you might have.
Any questions, supervisors? Supervisor Gitlin.
Thank you, Margaret and Andy, for making a great presentation. I'm just kind of looking at your demographics here. And your mission is for Medi-Cal recipients only, and that's...
Correct.
Okay, because I'm seeing a rather large number out of our total population of 10,487.
Yes.
And when you have it broken down, you identify as the senior population of only 788. I guess I'm used to knowing that we have a larger and growing senior population. You've heard, of course, the silver tsunami, and that our county, among many others, is expected to grow exponentially in this area of seniors, and I imagine many more will be in need of Medi-Cal services as we grow into. So this is definitely a trend item, trending in your behalf. So I appreciate all this information, and it sounds as like your time has come to serve a growing population of those in need. So I congratulate you, and I thank you for bringing this to my attention.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Any other comments, questions? How about the public? No? Margaret, Andy, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And with that, we're going to go to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion on the consent agenda, please?
I'll second. I'd like to pull out number 5 for discussion. Thank you.
I'd like to talk about item number 13, so we don't
Okay.
have to pull it, but we can discuss it.
Number 5, Supervisor Gitlin, do you want that pulled, or do you want it just to talk about it right now?
I'd like to talk about it. We can right now.
Go ahead.
I see Barbara is here. Barbara, can you come on up and kind of address some things? First of all, we had a chat yesterday. I didn't know the nature of what this is all about, and so I read a little bit more, and I read a little bit more, and I said, I think I need to call the new treasurer, the tax collector, Ms. Lopez, and find out some information on this. So I just am looking at this. This is, in fact, a real revenue tool, and I'd like the public to know what role you want to play in this. So you'll tell us that, and that there's a last quarter, which was from November of 14 to January of 15, so that's a 3-month period, the county earned about $59,700 in earned interest.
Correct.
And it's your hope that you can increase that amount. Is that
Yes.
that's your hope and what you're here today for?
Yeah.
So I appreciate your telling everyone what this is all about. I think it's a great idea, but I just want to hear what you plan to do about raising county revenues.
Sure. Well, annually, we always have to come before the board and get approval, at least I do, to have the investment authority delegated to me. And that's the first part of that packet in there for you. Secondly, I wanted to provide a treasurer's report to you folks and to the public so they can see what has been happening and what's currently in our holdings. So I have a quick little bullet point here that I was going to read to you, and then sort of some of my goals and strategies that I think might help improve our revenue. But I do have a disclaimer to make that this current portfolio is a product of our previous tax collector treasurer.
I'm glad
so
you pointed that out. Yes.
And so I have what I have to work with, and it's not the end of the world, but it's, we'll be working with it. Currently, LAIF's balance is about $18 million. It's earning only about 0.25%. Secondly, mitigation in that LAIF balance is about $1.4 million, and $6.5 million of that $18 million is school bonds. And that money is really difficult to invest. We don't know when that money is going to be spent. I know about $3 million of it will be spent in the summertime, but we still have a few million there that I don't really know how long they're going to need it, and I don't want to get it invested and not be able to use it. So I'm working with the schools. Hopefully we'll get some more answers on that. CalTrust is an account that we have. There's about $6.5 million in there. It's only earning about 0.75% right now. We have about $11 million in agency securities and $3.2 million in CDs. One thing that I did notice is about 8 of the 10 securities have the option to be called in the next 3 months. And looking at the market, I don't think they will. So we will probably be keeping those on our books for several years. There's an opportunity to maybe do some swaps. We can look at that, but absolutely don't want to take a loss on anything at this point. We don't need to for liquidity purposes. So that's kind of where the portfolio is right now. So with the approval of the board and the delegation authority for me to invest, I do have a couple ideas, but the main objective is obviously the safety of our public funds, liquidity, and then, lastly, yield on, earning as much in interest as we can. I think CalTrust is an option for us. I don't want to completely liquidate that account, but in my opinion, it was sort of a secondary account to have for if we need, to pull some money in within a 30-day, 60-day turnaround. So it was a good account to have money sitting in there, earning a little more than LAIF. But that money's been sitting in there, $6 million, for roughly 5 years. And looking back, we probably could have tripled our investment earnings if we had kind of moved that money around a little bit. So I really would like to, as opportunity arises, right now our shares are lower than what they were when we purchased that, so I don't want to take a loss on that. So if I see an opportunity in the market to, start pulling some of those at, our original principal balance, then I definitely want to take that out and reinvest those. A lot of the securities we have right now are just long-term 5-year callable notes, and I don't know that that's probably the best option. I think laddering this portfolio, diversifying it, our durations, we need to work on some short-term items, some bullets, non-callables. This will give us a really good opportunity to constantly being able to reinvest in as the market changes, hopefully for the good. So far it is, getting better. So that's, it's always on the back of my mind to do that. We do have some funds. We are, we have, $11 million invested right now, so we don't have a ton of money, but we do have some money. LAIF, we could definitely, take some money out of LAIF and start reinvesting that. Property taxes are coming due soon, so we'll have some money there. But as far as I can see, we really probably need to work on getting some money invested so we have some maturities in the summer. There's absolutely nothing coming through or due in the summer, so I really feel like we need to work on getting, every month having something coming due, just so we, really can work on that market and make as much interest as possible. I have a good handle on our treasury. I feel like I know how our cash flow is when we have money, when we don't. So I'm pretty confident in that. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I appreciate the opportunity, if you do approve, me to invest our public funds, that it's a extremely important role to me. I take it extremely seriously, and I'll work really hard and make it a priority in my job to work hard for the public funds. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Jerry?
Yeah, Barbara, I just want to say, thank you for, it's very refreshing that you're taking a proactive approach to this and actually looking after the community's money and funds and having them work hard for us. So yeah. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Good.
I too would like to thank you for a much broader, longer look and not taking so much of a conservative approach. Mm-hmm. It's great to recognize and see your ambition. I appreciate Supervisor Gitlin pulling this off the agenda to recognize this new approach. It's extremely important to us that we invest those dollars right within the parameters that the state gives us. But more importantly, those investments are critical to our future.
They are. We're not huge, but it's workable. We're a smaller county, but we can make some money here if we really try hard.
A little bit more of an aggressive approach.
Absolutely.
It's needed.
Yeah, thanks very much. The reason I put it on the consent agenda, number one, was because it was to adopt the resolution. Secondly, I didn't think that you should, it's refreshing to hear what you had to say. I've heard some of this in Proactive Financial Management Goal Committee, as well as in the Treasury Oversight, which we're going to be participating in. Didn't think that you should have to be held accountable for the, at least till you have a quarter under your belt of investments. But I am, it's been an issue in the past.
Yeah.
Why we dump everything into LAIF is
Right.
just, you know, it's
Yeah.
just ridiculous.
We only need about probably 10 million in there, really. So there's room to invest. I did change the Treasury Oversight Committee meetings to quarterly at this point. I really want to have an open door policy for public and everybody come in and, you know, I mean, I'm governed under certain, you know, parameters. I can't go out and buy some crazy corporate stuff, but suggestions and, you know, my door's always open, so feel free.
Yeah. No casino. Jerry wants some for scratchers and casino
Right.
work. Yeah.
Lotto.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Also, number 13, Supervisor Hemmingson.
Yeah, and I want to qualify this right off the bat and saying I'm not in favor of any kind of strip mining going on in anywhere as close to the Smith River. But I do have a concern in maybe the way the resolution, and I always like to get down to the now therefore stuff, where we want the president to protect basically forever the North Fork of the Smith River from any mining activities. And I don't know that, I guess it's how you define the impacts. I've always been looking after public access. So if this creates an issue with public access, commercial operations are a whole different thing. Let's put those aside. But for the Joe Blow recreationalist that wants to go out and pan a little gold in the creeks, I kind of have an issue with that, if that's what they're talking about. Because I did hear rumors that they were going after a 20-year mineral withdrawal. This looks like it's going farther than that, which means that no minerals can be taken off. That means you couldn't do any just hand gold panning or whatever you wanted to do, and it may even go as far as restricting access. So that I'd be very concerned with, and I'd like to know if we have any idea of what it is that we're approving here in what direction the president is going. Is he doing some sort of monument thing? I'm just a little bit curious as to if we know where we're going with this.
The resolution right now is supporting, I think, a philosophy, and it is in Oregon. As you noticed in here, it's kind of to the north of us. I do think it does leave some leeway to interpret what exactly will happen at the federal level. The idea of this resolution was to basically address the Red Flat area and the commercial mining. I think that you could interpret it that it could trickle down to smaller miners.
Right. Well, that's my concern.
Well, and when I started reading some of the whereases, I had great concern too, until I did get to the now therefore be it resolved, and it spoke to an advocacy for that portion of the North Fork of the Smith River that was in Oregon, specifically in Oregon. I think the reasoning behind that is because California already has, whether it is in the National Recreation Area or whatever, already has those protections in place for the wild and scenic portion. I like you, the nose under the camel's nose under the tent is something you always have to be concerned about. It struck me as somewhat innocuous in that we have no authority to, we're passing a resolution asking the president to do something about another state.
Yeah, it's support of one of our legislators. It does talk specifically to strip mining, and that is the focus.
Right, and I don't disagree with that, and I don't want to see that happen. And,
right,
and
it comes down to interpretation and then what the president actually brings forward, which is, the chairman pointed out, difficult to influence. But you know, the support of this one was targeted specifically to the Red Flat mining project.
Commercial, yeah, and that's the way it looked. I just want to be cautious about, you know, we want to keep an eye on what it is that that maybe is going to be going through. So I don't want this to be read as an okay to just close it up to the public. That is my concern. So, and my only concern.
Ditto.
Supervisor Hemmingson, do I hear that you want to amend this resolution?
No, no. I just want us to keep an eye on the next step. I don't think this puts us in a position where we can't defend public access. I think this is mostly addressing commercial activities, and so. But I just want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on where the president's going with whatever kind of protection that he's putting in place.
Well, I think what's important is we've established a record as to what our intent and interpretation of this is, should it come forward in the future and something we have to defend.
There is the possibility of adding the word strip mining into the therefore if the board so choose. And I would say in the third sentence it says, in Oregon from any mining activities, you could put strip mining activities.
I would be all in favor of that.
Okay.
If you did, that's a motion. I'll second that.
Yep, that's a motion.
Okay, that would be an amendment to the motion for approval of the consent agenda. And who made that motion?
I did.
You agree with that?
Supervisor Howard? Yes, I do agree
And
with
seconded? What? Okay. Roger. All right, then that will be part of the motion. Public comment on any item that is on that consent agenda, including the two that we just talked about? No? Back to the board. Poll the vote, please.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
that. Yes.
Chair Finnegan?
Yes. And with that, we'll go to the budget transfer on item number 14. Can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve budget transfer 03-01 in the amount of $13,000 within the public guardian budget.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Public comment on this? Back to the board. Poll the vote, please.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Finnegan?
Yes. And number 17 is to authorize the chair to sign the attached letter of the Del Norte Local Agency Formation to LAFCO regarding the pending application by Elk Valley Rancheria to annex a property to the Martin Ranch. Mr. Hooper.
Mr. Hooper.
And first, I would like to publicly congratulate you on your new position.
Oh, thank you. I do appreciate it.
Much deserved.
Well, I definitely appreciate that. Similar to Barbara, previously, there's an enthusiasm, there's an excitement, and there's a true honesty in terms of, respecting the public trust. But thank you. And also thank you, Jerry, for previously mentioning the OHV grant. We do hope to get some feedback from the public on that, so I appreciate you mentioning that. With respect to item number 17, I'll keep this very brief because it is something that's going to have to come back before the board at some point. Basically, this is a letter that's been requested by the Elk Valley Rancheria with the specific purpose of not opposing their application for extension of annexation into the CSA for the well-documented future casino hotel project of theirs at the Martin Ranch. So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to receive those. But again, this is an item that will have to come back for ultimate approval by the board.
Questions?
I do have a question. Is this within the sphere of influence of the ocean birch, or is this in the sphere of influence of the CSA?
That is a question that I don't know the specific answer to, but we can. Pardon?
Oh, no, it's in the sphere of influence of one or the other. I'm on LAFCO, and I just don't remember. I think it's in the sphere of influence of ocean birch, but I could be wrong. So I'm just curious. I mean, it hasn't been annexed, but it's in the sphere of influence.
Gotcha. And that's the purpose of this process through the CSD. It's my understanding, and take it for what it's worth, because this is a project that Heidi's been taking the lead on, but I think it is part of the Birch Ocean View CSD, and the annexation process will fully incorporate them into the CSA.
Now, is that different then than the Birch Ocean?
What are the two different spheres of influence you're referring to? Sorry.
Birch Ocean View
yes.
is a district, and the CSA, isn't that a separate district?
That's sewer.
The CSA is a community service area.
Right.
So the Birch Ocean View is a district that provides services within a CSA, is how I understand it. The sphere of influence for this particular project would be within the purview of the Birch Ocean View CSD, but it has to be annexed into the CSA to receive service.
Okay. Okay. Now, my other question is this is just a letter of support. This is not an application of the county doing this. These fees are going to be borne
That's-
by the tribe?
That is correct.
Okay.
At this point, you know, it's kind of a soft letter of support because it does have to come back before consideration. So if you read between the lines, it's really not opposing the concept.
Right.
But again, it will have to come back.
Randy?
Yes.
This is trust land, yes?
It was put into
APNs?
trust, yes.
So there's no income being derived from it at the present time?
And with respect to the county getting property taxes, that's correct, as I understand it.
Now, what's the city's input, since this is a sewer project? What's communications have you had with the city on this?
The department has received, I believe, some communication with the city, again, supporting the concept of the proposal. This is, you know, as I said, a pretty well-documented project that's been kind of going through the various approval processes over the years. It had to first be put into trust, which it was. It had to receive concurrence from the California Coastal Commission. We had to modify our county LCP, which this board took action to support. So there's been a series of steps that's been kind of leading up to this process. And you know, at this point, they're kind of getting to the finish line, but they still have to go through the LAFCO annexation process. So again, that's the purpose of this particular item.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion on this letter, please?
So moved?
Second.
So moved and seconded, authorizing the chair to sign and to send this letter. Public comment on this? Okay. Back to the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thanks very much. 18, considering miscellaneous legislative and budget matters. Jay, what do we got?
We're currently going through the mid-year budget process. We have meetings set up with 3 departments that have a couple of issues that we need to discuss and refine some of the projections. In general terms, we're in balance or in consistent with our budget overall. We do have a couple of concerns, like I mentioned. One is a loss of a grant, and the other is related to revenue and whether or not we're going to receive the amount of revenue that's been projected. Overall, though, I believe the departments have done a pretty good job of trying to stay within their budgets, and they have. And then, of course, we have the unknowns that happen during the year that are outside of their control. But we will be reporting back in more detail as soon as we have these meetings. Pretty confident to say that we're going to be within our budget this year. Legislatively, the tsunami of bills has begun, and I think there's over 2,000 bills introduced in Sacramento. We are being provided with a list of those constantly, and then we talk with our advocates as to what the true story is behind some of those that might affect us and who the players are so that we can then get involved either through them or directly through phone calls and discussions. The RCRC, CSAC, and our advocates all put out lists of bills that they feel are most effective to their individual counties. And at this point, any of those that require support of the board or some type of policy decision by the board will be brought before you. A lot of these bills are being discussed, which means they're going to be in a different form, fashion. They may combine. Right now, the list that I'll get a list of all of the board members, and then we will come back with these as they follow through the process. The SRS PILT issue, we've been talking with our advocate in Washington, very consistent with what Supervisor Finnegan reported earlier. They do believe that there will be an authorization that comes forward, and it'll be a 1 year, and then they're looking at the longer solution, but that solution will be, it's going to take a lot of discussion to come up with something that meets everybody's needs, and like it usually comes out, if it's effective, most people won't be completely happy with it, but there's a lot of diversity in the counties that are affected. But it is very important to Del Norte County through our schools and our roads, especially SRS. PILT has been reauthorized at this point. We will keep everybody apprised of the situation, and there may be a situation where we may be traveling to Washington, D.C. in support of some of these, possibly in May.
Along that lines, a lot of the people that receive PILT, now that's payment in lieu of taxes on the federal land, Bureau of Land Management. We don't have a good portion of that in Del Norte County, but what most counties don't understand, or most legislators don't understand, that there is a formula in place that if Secure Rural Schools does not get funded, then that money will come out of PILT. It won't be to the funding level that we need or have enjoyed, but it will definitely adversely affect all those other communities that do receive PILT. So another reason for them to get on board, have a long-term fix for both PILT and Secure Rural Schools. So why don't you roll right into number 10? I mean 19. Better put my glasses back on.
So this is a request to support the California Center for Rural Policy in regards to broadband. This is a significant priority of the Board of Supervisors and our community as a whole in regards to broadband expansion. I believe that Del Norte County is the hub for broadband in the North Coast and including Oregon. And if we can get our last miles into Humboldt County, it will be significant to our economy overall, and even Humboldt County, because Humboldt County has issues. If somebody runs into one of their broadband lines, it shuts their entire county down. We have redundancy, and redundancy is huge. And that has been something that came out of the HAS 199 project. It's been supported by all of our partners, and this would continue to fund the consortia, and we would then be part of all of that process, and hopefully when this is all said and done, one of the major players in broadband on the North Coast.
This is one of those things that came out of the California Emerging Technology Fund with Sonny McPeak. Was prioritized, and we needed to put money back in that fund, and this is great. $5 million go a long way. Chris, do you have something to say?
Just making a motion.
Go ahead.
Motion to authorize Chair Finnegan to sign the letter of support for AB 1262.
Moved and seconded. Public comment. Back to the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. That is the end of the scheduled items. I would like to implore the CAO to schedule, if not for our next meeting, the meeting after that, and we can have a discussion of how to agendize it, but to talk about the goal committees and refocusing on what should be added, what shouldn't. It should be an open session item, maybe a workshop at 11:30 after a board meeting, the same day of a board meeting, and after we decide where to go and vet it through administration, then we can open it up to the public in an even larger forum, although obviously it'll be an open session item. So if not the next meeting on the first meeting in April. And with that, thank you all for attending. Appreciate it as always. Meeting adjourned.